talk to Andrew Fox right now. He's Research Fellow at the Henry Jackson Society, an expert on defence in the Middle East and disinformation. He's live for us from Tel Aviv in Israel right now. Good morning to you, Andrew.
Hi, Julia.
What did you make of the decision announced by the Foreign Secretary David Lammy yesterday that we were going to basically suspend some of our arms export licences to Israel over concerns? David Lammy said that there is a clear risk that those weapons could be used to commit a serious violation of international humanitarian law. What's your reaction to that?
The killer phrase here is serious. It comes nowhere near the legal threshold to be a serious violation of international humanitarian law. Nothing they've listed in the legal advice they've given approaches that threshold. If it were serious, they'd have to suspend every arms sale. And they've done 30 out of 150 arms licenses, which means nothing but performative, spiteful, petty politics rather than a genuine.
Well, that's it. I'm sorry. The line is a bit unclear, but it's actually 30 out of 350 arms export licenses. But this is it. Is this just your politics? Yeah. And also, you're in Israel right now. The timing of this on a day when 6 families were burying their loved ones, hostages shot dead, murdered, execution style by Hamas in tunnels in Rafah, about to be found, it was thought, alive by the IDF, and they were burying their loved ones yesterday. And on that day of all days, a nation in grief, David Lammy announces this. What was the impact in Israel?
Oh, they were furious, absolutely furious. It was a kick when they were down, quite frankly. And it just shows, yet again, Mr. Lammy's blundering, incompetent, amateurish student politics approach to this conflict. He spent the last 2 months burning a shred of possible influence we had with the Israelis, and now he's put the nail in the coffin. So the state of this is nothing is going to change in Gaza, and the UK has now almost no influence whatsoever with the Israeli government.
I mean, this is the thing. We know that there's been a lot of pressure on Benjamin Netanyahu, and there's an awful lot of pressure, and you can actually see people who are watching on our YouTube page, you can actually see the big protests yesterday. They've been going on for a couple of days now, by led really by families of the hostages who are still being held, 101 still being held. Some of those we know will be dead, but getting the bodies back is also important to families to know for sure. Basically saying there must be a deal, their deal must be done. It seems to me, we were discussing this on the show yesterday, that actually even those protesters, as much as I understand what they want to get their loved ones home, that undermines the negotiation position for the Prime Minister, because the pressure on him at home to do a deal almost at any cost to get those Hamas hostages home.
And that's why Hamas did what they did. It's part of their information warfare campaign. It's part of the psychological warfare they're waging against Israel. They're trying to survive this conflict. That's all Hamas need to do now. They need to survive. And they need to survive with control of the border with Egypt so that they can rearm and reconstitute. And they're now pulling out their ace in the hole. They're attacking Israeli society directly to get them to force Mr. Netanyahu to sign a deal at any circumstances, and it's a very effective strategy, and it's had real impacts here in Israel.
Yeah, well, indeed. I mean, it's interesting, isn't it, when you look at Israel being pinpointed like this, and again on such a crucial day. I mean, Israel has bought £83 million of British arms. I mean, it's a lot less than 1% of Israeli arms supplies. Vast majority come from America. But over the last 3 years, Britain sold £3.1 billion of weapons to Qatar, which is a blatant sponsor of jihadism and a principal benefactor of Hamas. It sold £1.9 billion worth of weapons to Saudi Arabia, prosecuting a war in Yemen that has led to far greater deaths of civilians than has happened in Gaza. Turkey, again, brutally attacked the Kurds over the years. They've received almost £800 million in British arms. The United Arab Emirates, they've purchased £416 million. The Egyptians, again, massive crushing of dissent and in their country, £318 million, and just £83 million to Israel. But Israel is the country that is picked out by David Lammy, the new Foreign Secretary, of course with the approval of Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister, as the country that is, quote, a clear risk of a serious violation of international humanitarian law. Why do you think Israel's being picked out individually?
Well, none of those other countries have the benefit of 60 years of information warfare waged against them, where black is white and up is down and left is right. There's nothing that Israel have been accused of that actually bears any resemblance to what's actually happening on the ground in Gaza, where I have been and seen it with my own eyes. I've been embedded with the IDF. I've seen it's not a genocide. It's just the destruction of the tunnels leading to massive damage to the buildings that sit above them. And of course, we're only a few years away from the anti-Semitic mess of the Labour Party that was Jeremy Corbyn, his incarnation of the Labour Party. And to think that somehow Keir Starmer has purged that instinct, I think is delusional. And this is simply a gesture politics to placate that wing of the party who've been so influenced by the disinformation campaign that your last caller was a perfect greatest.
Wasn't he? I mean, I was thinking he literally virtually everything that I see constantly on social media in responses to me, apart from when they're just calling me a Zio hag and asking me how much Netanyahu's paying me to have my views, etc., etc., etc. I mean, that's the stuff you get. But literally every single thing. But this thing, you're a former major in the parachute regiment. You've been in battle. You understand these things. Now, unfortunately, it's a terrible thing that in war innocent people die, and that will include children and women and innocent men. When Hamas-run health ministry announced that roughly 40,000 people have died in Gaza since last October, I mean, for a start, in a major war like that, actually... terrifyingly, that is actually a very low number, certainly compared to other conflicts around the world. But also, given that Israel claimed that they've got, give or take, roughly 20,000 or so are Hamas fighters, and we'd all be thrilled that Hamas fighters, frankly, are now taken out of action. If you're looking at a one-to-one combatant to innocent civilian ratio of deaths, as horrible as that is, that's better than anything the US or the UK or any other Western government has ever achieved, isn't it?
Yeah, that's correct. And actually, you have to then factor in the deaths caused by Hamas action and their rockets falling short. Natural deaths over this period for the population the size of Gaza, which equates to 5,500 since the start of the war. I think there's a very strong case to say that we're below 1-to-1, and the protective measures and the humanitarian efforts the Israelis have put in is remarkable. They've built roads into Gaza to facilitate aid, so the aid doesn't stop when maneuver operations are ongoing.
But there isn't enough aid. I mean, look, we all know there isn't enough aid going in, and it is a devastating existence for those civilians in Gaza. If they've had to have a 3-day, a truce so they could just give polio vaccines to children because of an outbreak of polio. I mean, life is absolutely horrific for completely innocent people who've done nothing. They may well be massively, maybe Hamas supporters because they know no different. They've been completely and utterly, imbued in this world, but they're not holding weapons. A lot of these people are children and women who've done nothing. They've done nothing. They didn't take part in October the 7th. They're not done anything. But more does need to be done for them, doesn't it?
I mean, there's more calories per day going into Gaza than before the war. We're up to 3,600 per person, calories-wise. The issue is distribution. There's plenty of aid going in. It's getting it out to people in a war zone. And the clue is in the word war zone. And the fact that Hamas run the place, hijacking aid and are stopping it getting to the people that need it. Israel, I think, have gone above and beyond their international humanitarian law obligations to provide aid. As I said, they've built roads. They've got trucks driving through Israel up to Gate 96 Gaza Strip to get aid in. They've reviewed vehicle crossings that were destroyed by Hamas in October the 7th. The amount of effort the Israelis have put in is well above and beyond what they need to under the law. And the fact that aid in a war zone and disease in a war zone, there's a reason, the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, famine, pestilence, plague and war, they all go hand in hand.
Yeah.
Nothing unusual and nothing new. And again, Israel is being held to a standard that no other country in the world is held to.
And we don't even hold ourselves to that. Andrew Fox, great to talk to you.